Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are looking at another devblog for Update Red Skies, and it's time to have a look now at the T-80BVM. This is the new high-ranking Soviet tank which is coming to rank 7 of the USSR tech tree, and looking at it, it's pretty much looking like the best of both worlds. It has pretty much everything that you would want from a USSR perspective when it comes to the vehicle, matching the best ideas of the T-72B3 and also the later T-80s. Definitely a tank which a lot of people are going to strive for, especially since it's pretty much the only one that we've seen which is going to be a high-ranking MBT in this update. The last time this happened, when we only had one nation with a high-tier MBT, was actually the USSR last year as well, with the T-72B3 and also the extra T-72B being added. And what we saw is a flock of players going to the USSR nation, playing it and definitely having pretty high win rates because of it. And then the 2A6 came to town and everything went wrong. So let's talk about the history of the T-80BVM. So the T-80BVM is one of the current programs which is going forward for the Russian army, and it is to modernize the Soviet T-80BV tanks to the level of the T-72B3 and also T-90M main battle tanks which they use, as well as the unification with them, meaning to try and keep them all at the same level. The modernization includes an up-to-date fire control system with a duplicate sight for the commander and the ability to operate the 9M119 tandem ATGMs, as well as the Relict ERA instead of the Contact 1. And thanks to the latter, the protection of the vehicle from heat and AP projectiles was significantly increased. The modernization of the T-80BVM takes place at the facilities of the Omsk Heavy Machinery Plant and entered service with units of the Marines and motorized infantry of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. This is a vehicle which is incredibly modern and one of those which is really becoming one of the end-of-the-line vehicles that we are seeing from the USSR tech tree. When it comes to its general vehicle, it was actually first publicly revealed in 2017, showing how very much it is a modern vehicle, or a modernized version of an older vehicle is probably the best way to put it. But yeah, it's getting to a point now where we're going to be running out of Russian MBTs, and there's still a decent amount to go, and obviously the few special ones like the Amata and even the Black Eagle, which we could see at some point. So what is the difference between the T-80BVM and all of the other very high-ranking Russian MBTs? Well, if you look at it just in general, it takes all of the best aspects of those other MBTs and adds them together, meaning that this tank has the best pieces of pretty much all of them. It is obviously based on the T-80B, which is not as good as the T-80U, but generally still pretty good. And then on top of it, it has the Relict armor, which you will be familiar with from the T-72B3, which gives it great protection against not just chemical rounds, but also kinetic rounds. Then it has a very impressive gun, the best in the Soviet line. It has the best ammunition of it as well. It gets access to a new round, the 3BM60, which is a new APFS-DS round, which if you want to know the values on, we did a dev server video on this vehicle, so you can see what it looks like there. It also gets access to the 9M119M1 ATGM, which has a tandem warhead, and also the 3BM42 fin-stabilized round as a rank 1 modification, which has always been a good round. It has also the 1250 horsepower gas turbine, so it's going to be as fast as a T-80U. It also is the same weight as a T-80U, and also it has the good turret rotation from the Soviet tanks, and also the good reverse speed of 12 kilometers an hour backwards, which may not seem like a lot, but at the end of the day, it is faster than the T-72, so that is really nice. It also has the 6.5 second reload from the T-80 as well, and also has access to thermals. I don't know whether it has access to commander thermals. Unfortunately, on the dev server, the commander site for the T-80BVM wasn't there, but it did have very good gunner thermals, so that was pretty nice. Also has access to the decent machine gun on the top of it, meaning that it would be good for AA against helicopters and also against lighter targets. So just take all of the best parts of other vehicles you see at these BRs and just put them together, and this is the vehicle that you get. It is easily the best vehicle at the high ranks for the USSR now. There isn't even a contest. When it came to the T-80U and the T-72B3, you could look at both of the vehicles and you could see their bonuses. You know, the T-80U is a bit faster, it's a bit more maneuverable because of its reverse. It also had a better reload. They had the same ammunition. They had the same issues. The T-72B3 had the extra armor though, meaning that it was a toss-up between which one you take first spawn. Whereas this machine, you always take it first spawn. It is as simple as that. Now, just because it has all of the best bits of the other USSR vehicles doesn't mean it doesn't have their problems too, because this is something that has to be emphasized when it comes to these USSR MBTs. They all have the same weaknesses, which is one of the major issues with playing these things, especially against opposition which know how to fight them. The fact is, these machines always have three weak spots. They have the lower plate, which is always not very armored. They have the driver's port, which is always never armored, and also the cannon breach, which you can go through and kill the gunner on the other side. They also have the commander's cupola if you want to do a two-tap, because the things can't reverse too well. So the general issue with these machines, and even with the T-80BVM, since this hasn't changed in about a year or two, you shoot these USSR machines all in the same places from the front. So once you see one of these USSR tanks, you know where to deal with them, you know where to shoot. Even with all of the extra armor on the turret and on the upper glacis and even a little bit on the sides, you still know that those three kill spots exist, and therefore you should be able to take this thing out a little bit better. The other thing is the road wheel shot, if it's slightly angled, meaning that you can go through it and hit the autoloader in the middle. Obviously, it's the T-80 style autoloader instead of the T-72 one, so it's a bit more flat, a little bit harder to hit, but still, you can do that. So if you look at this vehicle from a NATO point of view in-game, and let's say you really like the Leopard 2A6, or you really like the M1A2, then yes, you are going to have issues penetrating its upper glacis. You are going to have issues penning its turret cheeks, but you shouldn't be shooting there anyway. You shouldn't just be blindly firing and trying to, just hit it in those areas. What you should be doing is trying to hit the areas which are weakly armored, and there are a decent amount on this vehicle. And since there is no difference between dealing with this vehicle compared to other USSR vehicles, the main thing you're looking for in this vehicle is the extra penetration on it to try and help it against some of its enemies. You know, the Leopard 2A6, the 3BM60, you can go through all of its lower glacis and upper glacis, basically all of its hull. It can do that against pretty much every vehicle, but still can't go through the turret when it comes to the cheeks of the 2A6 and also the SDRV-122. So that's a little bit of an issue, but it still should be completely fine with dealing with the majority of tanks that it sees. It also still has the weak gun depression that all the USSR vehicles have. It has the weak reverse, so once it's in a position, it's quite hard to get out of it, and also doesn't have as good turret rotation as some other vehicles, even though it is pretty good. So the thing is about this is a culmination of the greatest hits of the USSR, but it still has its problems. It still will be able to be dealt with, and it just means that if you don't have a vehicle with APFSDS, let's say you're grinding through vehicles and you only have access to heat before you get the APF SDS, you're going to have a really rough time against this thing, just like you would against the T-72B3 or anything similar. But once you get that APF SDS and once you learn where to shoot this thing, it is really going to be easy to kill. The fact that these things have 3-man crews, the fact that they have, that ammo rack in the center, it's very, very nice to be able just to punch holes in these vehicles. And I'm sure what will happen after this update comes out is there's going to be a big call and a big cry from many different nations when it comes to War Thunder for their new top-tier MBTs, because this vehicle is going to dominate the game for about 2 weeks because it's the only new top-tier MBT, so everybody's going to be grinding it, and normally what that means is the other sides get beaten up for a little bit because there's no parity between the amount of vehicles that actually get added into the game. And then after that, what will happen is everything will calm down again, and then we'll see where the ashes lie. And then I'm sure next update or the update after, the last nation of the major three will also get an MBT. In Update New Power, the Leopard 2A6 came along, took over the game, and because of its DM53, because of its mobility, because of all of its good factors, it had no weakness really. Then we have this machine, which comes along to counter the Leopard 2A6, and even though it doesn't really counter the 2A6, at least in a hold down position, it will still be quite strong against it. I'm sure when it comes to the next few updates, there's probably going to be an American MBT to look forward to. So look forward to that one, and if there isn't one, I would be highly surprised to come along with this machine and also the 2A6 from last year. There's a lot to look forward to when it comes to high-ranking stuff for pretty much every nation, and not just in the form of MBTs, but other vehicles, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. It's a good time for War Thunder, big expansions all around, and I'm hoping that with this update, there'll be even more cool stuff. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.